If anyone's been following the royal visit to Australia, you will know that one senator, Lydia Thorpe, got a lot of attention by basically ranting at the monarch, and she had to be escorted from the parliament. Now, I've always thought that heckling and ranting at someone, the main purpose is to get attention, and in that context, she certainly has achieved that. She's been on the cover of British newspapers. It's ignited a big debate in Australia itself. It's even been reported on India's First Post. Although, to be fair, Palki Sharma of the First Post has a pretty obvious anti-British agenda. So, of course, she'll jump on top of that. What Palki Sharma and other um, anti-British forces will not show is the large crowds who were welcoming the king. Um, I was going to make a broader video regarding this visit and also Charles's approach to the Commonwealth and all sorts of things around that. But for this particular video, I will focus on Lydia Thorpe. She is a controversial figure even before this incident. She was a member of the Green Party, I understand. She is now an independent. A few years ago in 2021, according to her Wikipedia profile, she'd been in a relationship with the leader of a biker gang, and there were conflict of interest issues there in terms of disclosure and so on. And there's been other examples where she's been rebuked by the speaker, but certainly this one has got the headlines. Honestly, a lot of people, she she divides opinion, right? So to some people, she's a brave teller of truth who has courageously spoken out against the colonizer, and she deserves credit for it. To others, to many others, I would say, she's an embarrassment. Now, I'm going to read out something from the Facebook page of Nova Peris OAM. Nova Peris was the first Aboriginal woman to be elected to the Australian Parliament. And the important thing here is Nova Peris is not a monarchist, she's a Republican. But this is what she had to say about the incident, and I think this probably carries more weight coming from an Aboriginal woman than it does from me as a white British guy. But this is what she said. Today's outburst by Senator Lydia Thorpe does not reflect all of Aboriginal Australia. As a former senator and the first Aboriginal woman in the Australian Parliament, I am deeply disappointed by the actions of Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe during King Charles III's visit to Parliament House. Her outburst, which disrupted what should have been a respectful event, was both embarrassing and disrespectful to our nation and the royal family. In 2022, Senator Thorpe herself affirmed allegiance to the Crown during her swearing-in ceremony as required by Section 42 of the Australian Constitution, stating, "I do solemnly and sincerely affirm and declare that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to the law." This is a reminder that regardless of personal beliefs, respecting our nation's constitutional framework is essential, especially in as elected representative. If Senator Thorpe was not on board with this, she should not have accepted her position and made her affirmation in the first place. For over 2 decades, I have supported the principle that Australia should one day become a republic. Indeed, as a former co-chair of the Australian Republican movement, I have advocated strongly for this. However, it is crucial to acknowledge that such decisions are for the Australian people to make through democratic means, not through rude interruptions or public outbursts. Senator Thorpe's actions today do not reflect the manners or approach to reconciliation of Aboriginal Australians at large. They reflect only her, and it is important to clarify that the vast majority of us would not engage in this unconstructive, unconfrontational way. Unconstructive, confrontational way. Australia is moving forward in its journey of reconciliation. As a nation, we are continually recognising the deep injustices faced by Aboriginal people. However, as hard as that journey is, it requires respectful dialogue, mutual understanding, and the shared commitment to healing, not divisive actions that draw attention away from the progress we are making as a country. I would like to extend my sincere apologies to King Charles III and Queen Camilla on behalf of all those who value mutual respect and the dignity of our nation. When King Charles visited Yolngu Country, that's Yolngu, not sure how to pronounce that. In 2018, he was welcomed with great respect and warmth by the traditional owners of the land, who honoured him with a traditional ceremony. That moment exemplified the kind of engagement we need, one where respect is earned and given in equal measure. Aboriginal Australia values these opportunities for cultural exchange and understanding. We are a proud people, deeply connected to our history, but we also recognise the importance of moving forward together as a unified nation. Lydia Thorpe's actions today do not reflect all of our people's views or values. I hope King Charles and Queen Camilla will continue to visit and engage their communities across Australia where they are welcomed with respect and dignity. And just like his mother, I think the king absolutely does respect the Commonwealth. Now, these are powerful words. Bear in mind, Nova Peris is not a monarchist, she's a Republican. But she understands that the politics of victimhood alone is not the way to go forward. And, you know, I'd be a hypocrite if I said I was just against heckling point blank. It does achieve a certain thing, it does achieve attention. And honestly, if, for example, a Chinese human rights activist were to heckle Xi Jinping, I'm not going to go out of my way to defend Xi Jinping, right? But Charles is not a dictator, and he has clearly stated he would respect the wishes of the Australian people. For example, if Australia was to become a republic, I mean, there's a track record for this because when Barbados became a republic in 2021, did the king protest? Did he stand in the way? No, he respectfully accepted that it was the will of the people of Barbados. Um, I just think that there's a lot of animosity thrown at Charles as a figurehead, as you know, he is the head of state of the United Kingdom and of 14 other countries. And I feel that people who have resentment towards the British Empire kind of throw all of this in the personification of King Charles III. This was a man who was born in 1948. He is not personally responsible for the crimes of white colonists in Australia. And I'm not one of these people that says there's no problems, that there's no history there. Of course there is, including well into the 20th century, the stolen generations, for example. I'm not ignorant of that stuff. And there are definitely wounds that absolutely need to be healed. But I do think that the politics of resentment and victimhood don't go forward. And the thing is, Charles has shown nothing but dignity and courteousness towards Indigenous peoples. I've seen clips of him visiting Indigenous communities, and those people, elders, have treated him with respect and with warmth. That doesn't mean they believe in him as a head of state, but Lydia Thorpe's actions are hers alone. It's significant that the Australian Republic movement, which is Australia's main Republican movement, they don't mention anything about Thorpe on their Facebook page. In fact, they had a campaign kind of showing Charles, Camilla, and William as aging rock stars. Um, that's what they were focused on. And in other words, they obviously don't want to hold her up as some sort of voice of republicanism. I think a lot of Australians, I think even Australian Republicans, kind of see her actions as embarrassing. And like I say, she's been rebuked before for discourteous behaviour in Parliament. This is a 51-year-old woman who, in my opinion, acts like a teenager trying to get attention, and she's achieved it. She has a picture on her profile of her holding up the fist like she's, Tiananmen Tank Man or something. It's pathetic. This is not to trivialise the issues that Aboriginal Australians face. I just think that that is not the way to go about it. And I'm British. It's not for me to say what the future of Australia should be. But on that subject, let's look at it. Republicanism in Australia, basically opinion polling is inconsistent. So the most recent poll in October 2024, taken by Pulse of Australia, found that 33% are in favour of a republic, 45% are in favour of monarchy, 22% undecided. So pro-monarchy has actually grown on Charles's watch. And certainly if the crowds that greeted him were anything to go by, there was a very positive reception, apart from Lydia Thorpe. And, there's scatterings of other protests, but there was nothing really. She stands out for the one angry, vitriolic protest. Um, January 2024, 42% in favour of a republic, 35% in favour of a monarchy. And it's inconsistent throughout. If we go back to 1999, the survey then conducted by Newspoll, July 1999, 46% in favour of a republic, 34% in favour of a monarchy. So it's just inconsistent. But the latest poll on Charles's visit is 45% in favour of monarchy. So there's no clear evidence that Australians want to become a republic. I mean, there's no clear evidence they want to stay a monarchy either, but the point is it is inconsistent. And, you know, unless there is a referendum held, and I don't know if there will be anytime soon, I know that Jacinda Ardern, she also, the former New Zealand Prime Minister, was criticised for taking an award from William when she's an avowed Republican, but she said as Premier, she had other things to worry about. Anthony Albanese is a Republican, but he's clearly not making this a priority. So I don't think there's really vitriolic republicanism in Australia. I think Lydia Thorpe's brand of republicanism is definitely well in the minority, even among Indigenous Australians. That doesn't mean there's no issues. That doesn't mean I'm saying, oh, everything's perfect. But clearly, even if you look at her own page, I'd say 2/3 are criticizing her, then the other third is saying she's a hero and she's telling the truth and all the rest of it. But I think that was quite obnoxious to a visitor, especially one who's recovering from cancer. It just looks mean spirited and it's holding Charles personally responsible. She's talking about genocide, she's talking about the stolen generations. These are things that Charles is not personally responsible for. She's going back to generational problems. And yes, those need to be addressed, but I just think she's going about it the wrong way. So I totally agree with Nova Peris. Australia may well be a republic one day. And there's no reason why we can't still have good relations with Australia the way we do with the United States. But Charles himself has said he will respect that. He has shown nothing but courteousness, and I don't think he deserves the way she was abusing him. It just looked rude. Um, but there's even calls for her to be formally reprimanded. She hasn't apologized. She's doubled down on this. I think she's full of herself, quite frankly. Um, I mean, there's calls for her to be held under seditious laws. I don't know whether that will go ahead or not. But um, this thing about taking the oath of loyalty to the crown, I mean, put it this way, Sinn Féin is anti-crown, and they don't take their seats in Parliament, so at least they're true to their word. Whatever else can be said about them, at least they're true to the word. If Lydia Thorpe really feels this strongly, um, maybe she should stick to her principles and not be a senator. Maybe she can campaign elsewhere in another format. But to be this vitriolic, I think it's the wrong approach. I'm sure some people will disagree with me and say, oh, she's absolutely right. She's brave for telling the truth. But nothing serious is going to happen to her. She has her opinion. She's entitled to her opinion. But it's the way she went about it that's a contention. And looking at the opinions, I think a lot of Australians feel embarrassed by her actions. And I just think it's a pity that that got the attention when there was so much positivity. So many Australians welcomed the King. I mean, really, It's ironic that the Republican movement used this motif of them being rock stars when people lining up were acting like they were rock stars. It's interesting. I'd be saddened if Australia became a republic, but I don't think it has to mean a divorce from Anglo-Australian ties. I mean, we're still close to the United States as a republic, so. And of course, it's up to the Australian people. I respect that. I just think yeah, I think it was extremely rude and also misplaced to personally vilify Charles.